Hey, Eskis, let's look at our horizontal. Both are play Sun, along with just the general concepts of understanding how to play in the system of zone. So in vertical stack, we have everyone over here, and we have our open area that we attack, our break side area, and our deep area that we attack. It's slightly different when we are playing our horizontal. With horizontal, it looks like everyone is clogging, but the key concepts is whenever you are on the open side, you're usually clearing out. And that's the setup for the continuation cuts. So most of the time, rather than being in the vertical line, we end up find ourselves floating in quote unquote random spots along the field, as long as we understand the lanes. So in horizontal, we have 4 lanes. Imagine it's a swimming pool and there's lane ropes. So we want to be staying in a lane and understand that we throw through these lanes. So if we open up a lane, let's say in our normal play of Sun, 3 leaves, let's call this lane 3. This will be lane 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, I cannot. 4. So this player left lane 3, 4 stays in lane 4, 1 stays in lane 1, 2, someone entered his lane, so they try running into lane 3. That's one way of thinking about running a horizontal, which is trying to understand what lane you're in, what lanes are open, and what lanes are empty. We almost always want to fill every lane, but occasionally you're going to see that there are multiple players in a lane. And if we are in multiple layers in a lane, what is the most important lane? Most important lane right now is 3 and probably 4. This is better because this is on the open side. Lane number 1 and 2 are on the break side, so we usually want to clear out to these lanes. Let's look at how people will be moving through this. So this is the initiation of Sun. We go from our horizontal to 1 going deep, 2 cutting deep then in, 3 cutting across to clear out, but also look for a breakthrough, and 4 going deep. So if we look at those lanes, like I was mentioning earlier, lane 1, that's a little bit too thick. Let's narrow it down. Lane 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't worry too much that they're not even. You could see that people start going into different lanes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait a minute, that's wrong. Lane 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. That makes more sense. So our first look as the handler is we always look at 3 first. So this player over here will be doing a clear out, but it's also a breakthrough. So if our handler is able to hit that, that's our first look. So we look at 3. If 3 isn't open, 2 takes more time to develop, so then we hit 2. If that doesn't work, 2 clears out, as if they were 3 earlier. 3 could start peeling deep, and 4 can cut in. Do you remember when we were saying in our practice, let's do it this way. So 2's path goes, let's go with 1's first. 1's path goes deep, and then kind of comes back in here. 2 goes deep in, and then clears out. 3 clears out, and then shuffles back through. 4 goes deep, and then does an in cut. In cut. And you start to see that, oh, there's 2 people in the same lane. So there's 1 person in lane 1 over here. There's 2 people in lane 2. There's 1 person in lane 3. and there's no one in lane 4. That's okay. This is only okay because we have people on the break side. If we had 2 people on the open side, it becomes a little more concerning. And 2 cleared out. 1 is currently setting up to make a move, in which they could make a move going. They could make a move once 4 clears out. They could go in. They could go deep. They could go deep and then cut into lane 4. Or maybe they cut deep into lane 4. But right now, 1 is setting up their cut. This is a setup. 3 is setting up also. 2 just cleared out. And now 4 is in the lane, so they have to clear out. They could clear out going deep. They could clear out by doing this. All of those are valid clear out. So if it doesn't go there, we only played so that there are 2 cycles. So cycle 1 and then cycle 2. But we never talked about a third cycle. Because now, on our third cycle, things get more creative. So for example, let's look at what 4 does first. So 4, your responsibility is to clear out. That's the biggest thing. So as 4, you have to clear out. No dancing, you have to get out of the lane. You did an in cut, and now you have to clear. And we'll see that. But let's look at 1. 1 right now, they just set up. So they set up over here, getting ready to cut as soon as 4 clears out. So in this one, this person did the creativity of faking an in and then going deep. So this is a creative move. In deep. And that's a possible hit. Okay, what about number 3 over here? Number 3 set up over here, and he comes to fill for 1, but as soon as number 3 notices number 1 went deep and number 4 cleared out, you're going to see number 3 cut in. And they cut in. And then the last person, number 2, doesn't do too much. They just fill in for number 3, setting up for whatever happens next. And now once again, if we look at lanes, 1 person in lane 1, there's 1 person in lane 2, but oh, that's strange. There's 2 people in lane 3. I thought you just said, Irish, that you could only have 2 people in the break lanes, the break side lanes. But right now, there's 2 people in lane 3. Well, if you look at how they're running, this one runs in, well, this one runs deep. So now not only is there 4 lanes, lane 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's also 2 halves. There's in cuts and there's deep cuts. So when we play zone, when zone is played on us, we need to be exploring every single lane. We want to go to lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, lane 4, and we want to visit them going in and deep. So in zone, we might start off. Let's go back to here. We might start off as number 1, or let's say we start off as number 3. So we start off as number 3, and the first thing we do is we clear out. Okay, so now we're in lane 2 on the in. Then maybe we go to lane 1, and then maybe we go deep, lane 2, and then we go in, lane 4, and then we go back to in, lane 3, then deep, lane 4, then maybe we cross all the way to lane 1 deep, and then we cut in, lane 3 in, and then we go deep, lane 3 deep, and then let's say maybe we clear out again, lane 1, and then we come in to set up, and then maybe we strike lane 4 deep. So if I was to track you as a player, I want to see you moving like this. all throughout the point. It doesn't matter what the handler's doing, doesn't matter what swings are happening. We're constantly going to different areas. What about, oh, I deleted that. I didn't want to get rid of it all. Let's put the lanes up again. Lane 1, 2, 3, and then break it up. And then we'll do our Huskies purple. Let's say you started as 4. So 4, you go deep. You go to lane 4. Should I put the numbers again? Let's put the numbers again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In. Deep. Oh gosh. So we started off by going deep, lane 4. Then we cut in, lane 3. And then we clear out, lane 2. We set up, lane 1 in. We go deep, lane 2. We go in, lane 3. We go deep, lane 3. We clear out, lane 1. We go in, lane 1. We go in, lane 2. We go deep, lane 1. We go deep, lane 3. And then in, lane 4. And we clear out, lane 2. Once again, hitting every area. We're always visiting every area. So where were we over here? So we just saw that movement. What's another movement we could do? So right now, person 3 is in the open side, person 1 is on the open side deep, and then we have 4 and 2 who set up. So right now, 3 is set up to clear or do a deep cut. 1 is set up to clear or do an in cut. 2 is set up to do an in cut or a deep cut, and 4 is coming to set up again. So let's see what happens. So over here, 3 clears out by going into lane 4 and then going deep. And that leaves room for cutter number 1 to do an in cut. And then number 2 does a deep cut. So rather than 3 clearing to lane 2, 3 cleared lane to lane 4 and then went deep. 1 filled in, 2 filled in, 4 filled in. So another concept of horizontal is what is our most likely attack areas? If we go back to our pool analogy, lane 1, oh my gosh, please, straight line. Lane 1, lane 2, lane 1, oh, that's such a straight line. Lane 2, lane 3, 4. There you go. Okay, so, and then deepen in. What are the most likely areas that we try to catch the frisbee? So we try to catch the frisbee over here, over here, over here. We could catch it over here. We also often look for in this general area. And then this one is hard, but we could also look over here. So what is the most likely area to hit? When it comes to what's most likely to get hit, this is number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3. This is number 4. This is number 5. And this is number 6. So most of the time, we're hitting number 1. We're also pretty commonly hitting number 2. Occasionally, we hit number 3. Occasionally, we hit number 4. Very rarely, it would be nice if we could, but very rarely we hit 5. And then once in a tournament, we might hit number 6. Maybe once in 2 tournaments, we might hit number 6. So when we're cutting, we usually want to try to cut into these areas. We want to cut into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Usually, we don't throw too much into this middle, but if their team is poaching heavily, this area right here is very circumstantial. Number 7, we throw here if there's no defenders. Let's say the deep defender goes really deep and the in defenders are really shallow, and you're standing here, nobody is on you. The handler might want to try to look in this general area to see if, oh, is anyone poached? Is anyone open? Maybe I could hit them. So 7 is more hit when they're playing zone rather than man, but it's still an option. And this usually you're standing still to get it in zone 7. But zone 1, 2, 3, 4 is very likely to get it. So we want to try to cut to these areas. We're not trying to cut to the middle of the field. We're trying to cut in and deep, but not too far in. Otherwise, like we said, cutters, we don't want to get too close to our handlers. So we were over here. Okay, so now 3 is starting to go deep. 1 is in lane 3 in. 2 is cutting deep. 4 is over there. What could possibly happen? So over there, here's another creative move. So what did 1 do? 1 basically did the same thing that 3 did. They cleared to lane 4 and then started going deep. But number 3 was going deep and then did an in cut, like what this person usually does on cycle 2. And because of that, what does number 2 do? Instead of cutting in, because this person already sees number 3 is cutting in, so we can't do this because number 3 is already cutting in. So instead, 2 clears out. Oh, what happened there? 3. I think I mixed things up a little. There. There. Yeah, I think I deleted something by accident. It's okay. So let's look at the handler motion now. So you could ignore the cutters over here. Just ignore them. We're going to look at the handlers. So the handlers are usually set up like this. You could also have 6 set up over here, but we want both of them to take a step back so that both throws, flick, and backhand become very easy. If 6 is pushed up, their defender could help take away the lane. So after the handler is done looking at the cutters, number 6 steps up and then does an upline. Number 7 cuts around the back. Pretty simple. If it's on the sideline, on the other hand, when we look at our cutters, now the spacing is slightly different. So once again, if we look at the lanes, we have the same lanes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. But now, what lanes are likely to get open? So we are trying to hit this in. We're trying to hit this deep. We could occasionally hit this deep. We're also trying to look for this. And then there's a general kind of area here that we might be able to hit occasionally. So this is number 1. This is number 2. This is number 3. This is number 4. And this is number 5. So we're almost always hitting 1, 2, 3. 4 is harder to hit, and 5 is really hard to hit. So that's unlikely to be hit. And then, like I said before, if they're playing zone, there's this general kind of area over here that might be hit. So we want to be cutting into these areas. So just like over here, where we have this kind of triangle action, we're going to take that triangle and we're going to put it on the sideline over here. Once again, you see this kind of open triangle. And now it's on the sideline because the frisbee's here. So it's whatever two players are most in front of the frisbee. So these two players are most in front of the frisbee. The person who's most in front has to clear out, and then the person that is one number under goes deep and in. I feel like horizontal is a lot more confusing, which is why we learn vertical way before we learn horizontal. But we'll just try to keep working with this. Let's see where we are. So number one and number two set up. If that doesn't happen, what do you think three does? Three clears out, right? And four will probably set up. So yeah, that's what we see. And we see number two and one, they both set up. So two decides to do an in cut and one decides to do a deep cut. So if that doesn't happen, what should we do? Two should clear out, three should set up, four should look for an attack, and one should clear out or look for an attack. Oh, but that doesn't happen on this one. So one clears out. What does two do? Two clears, but then goes deep. So the move that two did is two did a deep in cut, didn't get the frisbee, pretended to clear out, but then striked deep. So this is a great example of going through different zones. Started off in lane 3 in, faked going to, sorry, this is lane 2. Started off in lane 2 in, faked going to lane 3 deep, but actually went to lane 4 in, pretended to clear out to lane 3 in, but in reality attacked lane 4 deep. So that idea of going to different lanes, going to different heights of in and deep is what 2 has been doing over here. And then what else could happen? So from here, 4 clears out, 3 goes deep, 2 goes in, 1 stays back, setting up. And there's just a bunch of different movements that could happen. Handler-wise, what do we do? Number 5 will step up and then do an upline. And then number 6, we'll try to get it for a centering pass. And if that doesn't work, we go through triangle. Handlers, most of you understand triangle system. A series of fills, Berkeleys, and 7 cuts. So horizontal is a very complicated system. But if we were to go over the main concepts for the cutters, concept number 1 would be understanding lanes. Concept number 2 would be understanding in and deep. Concept number 3 would be just traveling, just keep on moving through all of those zones. Concept number 4 would be what are the hotspots? What are the hotspots of where we're cutting? Understanding filling. So when someone leaves a hotspot, we want to attack and fill that hotspot. Clearing is huge. We want to clear all the time. The only place you tend to stand is that break side generally. But when you're doing that, we are concept of setting up the next cut. I think those are the main concepts of running a horizontal. So I'll play it all again for you, just so that you could see all the movements. And I won't put too much commentary here. So we start off with rotation 1, rotation 2, an example of what might happen after, another example of what might happen after that, and at this point we're just doing free cutting. It doesn't work. This is how handlers cut when frisbee's in the middle. If it's on the sideline, we do that triangle cut off of 3 and 4 instead of 2 and 3. Number 1 and 2 do the continuation. Here's a couple examples of free cutting. More free cutting. More free cutting. really looking at that example of filling, taking important zones, and traveling to all around each zone, and then how handlers cut in the horizontal system. Okay, very complicated. We will try to work on this. Watch this a couple times. I'll try to put timestamps to key parts. But good luck, Huskies.